Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about yet another episode of The Mandalorian, episode 3 of season 2, or chapter 11, however you want to look at it. And you know, this entire show has just got me wrapped up. I love doing videos on these, and of course this will be a spoiler episode, so if you guys don't want to know anything about this episode, this had a lot of great stuff, a lot of great tie-ins that I want to get into and really dig into. This was a great episode, and this was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, which her episode last season was a solid episode. I thought it had a lot of great, Star Wars-y feel. It had that, rising up to the greater powers type of arc that you always love from Star Wars. But this episode was a lot more grand because it had direct tie-ins to the overall arc and story of what I believe this season is going to end up being. And so this episode was fantastic. I loved her direction in this episode. I think this is definitely her best episode yet. But let's just jump right into the spoilers. Of course, the main thing is BO-KATAN. Katee Sackhoff has finally arrived. She was heavily rumored to be in the show, but it was never directly confirmed. I think most people kind of just assumed that she was going to be in it. But Katee Sackhoff, the great Katee Sackhoff, was in this episode, and I cannot express how much I love her as an actress. I have a review up for Oculus, which is one of my favorite horror movies directed by Mike Flanagan, and that's probably my favorite Katee Sackhoff performance. And of course, I saw her in SEN Live, or the Schmodown, or the old Schmoes No Show that used to go on, and she used to pop up on that show a bunch. And I just love her as an actress and as a person, and she's so great to see as a live-action version of her character from the Clone Wars, which, again, like I said in the last couple of episodes of this, The Mandalorian really does take into account not only just the original trilogy and the lore set up in that original 3 movies, but it also takes into account the stuff from like the prequels and stuff from the video games. Even in the past couple episodes, there's some video game references, even directly to like the spider creatures remind me of something straight out of Jedi Fallen Order, or the pearl that was found from the Krayt Dragon, that was something from one of the older video games. And of course there's huge tie-ins because of Dave Filoni to the Clone Wars series, which if you guys have not seen the Clone Wars animated show, I highly recommend watching that as well. I actually have a list I'll pop up on screen of the most important episodes, and probably my favorite arc of the entire Clone Wars series was everything on Mandalore with Bo-Katan, and with Jon Favreau actually voiced one of the Mandalorian characters in that show, and with Darth Maul, of course, and Ahsoka, and all these different things that took place on Mandalore with Obi-Wan. That was really great, and those are the arcs from the Clone Wars that I took away most from, especially because I watched that show in preparation for The Mandalorian, because I thought there would be some ties with that. And of course now season 2 we're actually getting some of those, which is awesome to see. But before we get into Bo-Katan's entire storyline and her purpose of this episode, let's just kind of do a rewind and just basically get a little feel of what this episode was. So it started off exactly like the past few episodes have started off, which makes me feel like this entire season would be great to binge, because every episode just leads into the next one so perfectly. Of course, the first one ended off on Tatooine, and the next one picked up on Tatooine. There's a little scuffle, and then he goes off to another planet, taking the fish lady and getting attacked by the spiders, and the Razor Crest was just completely screwed up, and just a complete disaster at the beginning of this episode, and at the end of the episode it's still a complete disaster. But it just really has a flow to it, and every episode just kind of picks up right where the last one left off, and there's a really good through line throughout all of this. And of course, he brings the fish lady to her husband. They have a nice little reunion, and the fish baby egg things are starting to hatch and all this great stuff. And then she has her husband tell the Mandalorian to talk to this one guy, to talk to another guy that possibly knows where the Mandalorians are, because that of course is the whole reason why he took this entire journey in the first place, was to find more of his kind. And that's exactly what they do, and that's where you meet Bo-Katan and all these people. And what's very interesting, what I mentioned in the past couple of episodes, was the theme of this season that I'm picking up after, especially after this episode, is how the Mandalorian is really kind of getting a feel of his own culture, his own beliefs that he's known for his entire childhood, or ever since his childhood, of being picked up by the Mandalorians and having this idea, this is the way, we're always wearing the helmets, nobody gets to see us with our masks off, and just this whole thing. And then you find out in this episode that it's actually more of an extremist cult called, I think, the Watch is what they called it, and this cult kind of went off on their own away from the Mandalore planet and started their own thing and started their own philosophies, and it's really starting to tear apart the beliefs of the Mandalorian, which I think is very interesting. And so I can really start to piece together the entire arc of this character, because obviously in the first episode he wanted to get back that Boba Fett's armor because he felt like he had some sort of ownership over that. His kind has some sort of ownership over the Beskar steel. And then of course the second episode, talking with the fish lady and having some sort of honor code with her, like, oh, you need to do this, you can't just sit around and doing nothing, this is part of your religion, this is something that you have to do. And that's exactly what he did in this episode when he sees Bo-Katan and her little group with Sasha Banks and them just taking off their helmets and telling the story of Mandalore and how it's kind of fallen apart after the Empire took over, because they couldn't necessarily control Mandalore, but they made it so nobody else really could, and so that's why Mandalore apparently is such a disaster now, and she wants to go back and take over Mandalore for herself, and in order to do so, she needs to get the Darksaber, which in the Clone Wars, she left off that series with the Darksaber. So at one point, from the ending of Clone Wars all the way up through the original trilogy to now, she ended up losing it to Moff Gideon. So we're going to have to see some sort of backstory maybe with that. I'd love to see an entire episode just with Katee Sackhoff and her entire story. And I really hope this show does go to a point where it's probably not going to be at the end of this season, but at the end of next season, it's probably going to be a full-on war to get back Mandalore, and that would be awesome to see for Season 3. And I've always kind of had a back and forth on whether or not they're actually going to get rid of Baby Yoda, because Baby Yoda wasn't in this episode as much, but there are, again, a lot of adorable shots of Baby Yoda. I'll put a little montage here again. But this little guy trying to eat everything he possibly can is fantastic. And the little squid thing that jumped on his face, the whole face hugger moments that we didn't get to see in the last episode happened in this episode. So fantastic. I love all the alien references there they've been doing. But I've always been wondering if they're actually, because the whole mission is he's trying to take Baby Yoda back to his kind, whatever planet that may be, and he's trying to get to the Jedi, which, of course, we get to see where he's going next for possibly the next episode, which is great. But I don't know if he's actually going to let Baby Yoda go and actually leave Baby Yoda with either Ahsoka or with, if they ever actually get to the planet of Yodas. Who knows whether or not they're going to do that. And I thought maybe at one point he's going to grow so attached to him that maybe he's just going to keep him and raise him himself. And now I'm starting to think that this show possibly could go without Baby Yoda, because I think a lot of people are staying for the baby because of that, the whole lore behind it and the whole mystery of this species. But with everything that they're setting up with Mandalore, and obviously this show is called The Mandalorian and the whole religion behind it, I am so down if they actually do let go of Baby Yoda, let Baby Yoda go off with Ahsoka on her spin-off show or whatever they do with that, and I'd be completely fine with that. We're starting to get into the stuff that I was expecting from this show. I was not expecting a Baby Yoda aspect. I was fully expecting them to explore the Mandalorian culture, and especially Mandalore, because that was by far the best stuff in the Clone Wars show. So I'm really pumped for the future of this entire show, and that's probably going to be Season 3. It won't be this season, but I am looking forward to seeing Ahsoka. Obviously, BO-KATAN says, oh, you can go to this one planet and say that BO-KATAN sent you, and you look for Ahsoka Tano. So we will see Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, probably, hopefully, in the next episode. I can't wait for that. But it seems like this show obviously has the whole episodic feel, and there's a whole mission of them trying to take over this one Imperial ship, which there's a great cameo by the man in black from Lost. This guy shows up as the Imperial general guy, and that's great to see. The first time he popped, I was like, who is that? And I got it. And when I got it, I screamed and freaked out. Like, that's the villain from Lost. And that's awesome because I haven't seen him in anything since. But they had that whole episodic thing of them trying to take over the ship with the four Mandalorians, with Sasha Banks and Bo-Katan and everybody else. And obviously that was great seeing her in it as well. And they were all badasses too. They kicked ass. They took over the ship with no problem whatsoever. Mandalorian had one heroic moment where he just took all these hits with the Beskar steel. This thing is really invincible, but it still beat him up a little bit. But yeah, that's the whole episodic feel. But it feels like each season is going to have probably about 3 or 4 kind of side mission-y episodes. Obviously, last season it had about 4 of them. Episode 2, Episode 4, 5, and 6 seemed like side missions, although you were meeting a lot of great characters along the way. And then this season, Episode 1 is kind of like the Episode 2 type of spin-off episode from Season 1, where it kind of has to do with the main plot, but also kind of has its own side mission-y story. So it's kind of a mixture of both. And then obviously episode 2 was definitely one of those episodic episodes. And this one, probably the next one, and the next one after that are all going to be connected to the larger grand scheme of this entire season. So we're starting to get a feel of what this season looks like. We're already 3 episodes in of 8, so we're getting through it. If you guys have any ideas, if I missed anything in this video that you want me to talk about, comment down below. I'll be commenting and replying to all you guys. Had a great conversation in my last video, so definitely check out my channel and all the videos I've been doing for The Mandalorian all the way from Season 1 up till now. I love this show, and I've been having a lot of fun talking about it. So that is my review for Chapter 11, Season 2, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian. It was a great episode. Bryce Dallas Howard did a great job directing this one, and I can't wait for next Friday when I review the next one. So subscribe to the channel, guys. Like I said, comment down below, leave a like, share the channel to everybody else you know, because I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by, I think I'm going for like 4 or 5 years from now. I think that's the goal. So let's try to get to 500 eventually. Thanks guys for watching. I hope to see you all in my next one.